Order this meeting of the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. At this time, I'll ask you to stand for an invocation. Dear God, we pause in this moment to give you thanks for the community of Terrell, the citizens that call it home. Lord, help us to be good stewards of the funds that are available and do everything that is good and pleasing to your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. If you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. At this time, we'll hear remarks from our guest city manager, Mike Sims.
Hal Richards has been telling a little joke for a long time where he'll introduce him. I'll introduce him as former Mayor Hal Richards, and he'll say, "No, I'm a used mayor," and I feel like that's a well-said thing, because it is exhausting to be a volunteer, and you guys are all volunteers, and I appreciate that very much. I'm going to go off the words you said, which is to be a steward, and so sometimes we are stewards of one job, and then suddenly we're stewards of another job. So many of you have picked up the information that I've accepted the job to be the town manager in Argyle. I'll be in Argyle on May the 21st with a roaring vacation starting at 5 p.m. on May the 20th. And the city council has named this nice man over here, Mark Mills, as the interim city manager. And so he's got the car keys, he's driving, and whatever you need, we have all the confidence in the world in Mark. I think that those of you who have worked with him closely know that he's got a really excellent background between his work in Carrollton, North Richland Hills, and some other stops along the way. And I've learned a lot from him, and he's brought a really good approach to things here, and I think that all the staff is going to really enjoy working with him as well. So you guys get to be stewards of the future here. You've been entrusted with a big chunk of sales tax dollars, and the city management has the job of growing that over the period of time, and you have the job of finding different ways to invest that for the benefit of the citizens of Terrell, whether it's a downtown project or whether it's a park project. My comment to you is just think about it deeply. And you've been blessing this city as a group for some time now. I can't tell you the great feedback I get from the decisions that you guys have been making. So my comment is rah, rah, keep doing what you're doing. And I'll be around if you want to say howdy. And again, just my thanks to this board and welcome to Mark. So thank you all. Appreciate it. Yep, absolutely.
I know I speak on behalf of the entire board when I say thank you for your many years of service to Terrell. Special thanks for helping us launch this rocket from what felt like absolutely nothing and keeping us on the rails over the past, I guess, 5 years now, thereabouts. So we're very grateful. Thank you. I ask the board to review the minutes from our April 11th and our April 21st meeting. Once you've had a moment to do so, I will entertain a motion to approve. I move to approve the minutes from both. Thank you, Mary. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, JC. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. At this time, we will receive the financial report, and for this, I'll call on Raylan.
So lucky for you, you have the breakdown in your packet of the itemized expenses, but this morning I'm going to turn this over to our interim city manager, Mark Mills.
Good morning. So exciting news we have for you, financials. Based on the information that we have that's in the system today, through the end of February of 2025. The financials for March are currently being worked on. We're currently on a schedule where we are providing monthly financials to City Council about 60 days out. So from the end of the month, we have about 60 days and then a couple of days to get to the first council meeting of the next month. We're looking to get that shortened, but it's been a while since there's been routine monthly financials, and we're getting back on track. We've done it twice, so I can actually say it's a trend. And it should be on the first agenda in June as well. So what we have for you is only through February, but that's in line with what we provided to City Council to this point. So far, we're through February, you've collected about 46% of your revenue and have about 24% of your total expenditures. I'm going to let Raylan talk about expenditures if you have questions, because she'll have the details more than I will. My primary focus for you today is sales tax. I want to let you know that the most recent information I have not looked to see if we've gotten our payment for this month. I think it'll probably be next week when we get our payment. But through the sales tax that we have received through about April the 10th, so we've gotten we got our April payment, and it's for collections through February. It's 2 months back. So when we get our money, every month when we get our money, it is actually the sales tax that we're getting from the state from what was submitted 2 months ago, okay? So looking at our sales tax collections, just to give you a little bit of information, month over month, so looking at the collections for February of 25 compared to February of 24, we were down about 3.85%. That's just a month-to-month comparison. The good news is when you look at it holistically and you look at it from October through the April payment, which would have been February, we're actually up 4.2% in total collections year over year. In comparison to what we projected for budget, we could not be more dead on. We are running about 0.17% above budget. So as long as everything follows budget, and it won't, but as long as everything follows budget, currently we're in good shape. We're going to try to do a better job of making sure that the sales tax information that I get is communicated to you so you have an idea of what's going on. When I said we're down 3.8%, we do a look at the other cities in Kaufman County and looking at the other large collectors of sales tax in the county. We were down 3.8%. When you look at Forney, they were down almost 14%. So we did not fare as poorly as they did. The other large collectors of sales, we are the largest collector, largest collector of sales tax in the county. Forney is second. In total, we collected almost 1.4 million in sales tax for that month. Forney collected just under 1.1 million. Again, they were down almost 14%. Kaufman, they collect about $350,000, $360,000. They were down almost 11%. And the other large collector is Maybank, and they were actually up about 8%. So it varies on community depending upon what's going on. But we were down, but we fared better than most. And we are trending 4.2% above where we were this time last year when you look at it year over year. And again, we couldn't be more on budget. And you're at about 24% through February of your total expenditures. And for specific comments on expenditures, I'd have to rely on Raylan. But I'm available for any questions you all may have or anything that we need to research and additional information we need to get to you all.
It's very helpful. Any questions for Mr. Mills?
Yes, ma'am.
On this one, what does transfers mean?
Transfers means it's money that is in that fund that is going somewhere else. And that one is... Yes, ma'am. It's there's a transfer out to interest and sinking Fund 1. So it's principal and interest on debt that the city has issued. So any debt that has been issued for paddock that the city has issued, those are the money that covers the principal and interest payments.
Thank you for the question, Patty. Anyone else? For our guests in the room, I just want to emphasize that the income for our paddock board and our EDC does come from the sales tax of the community. You will not find anybody that cares more about small business in downtown than I do, but one of the benefits of the big boxes that we've brought to our town is a sales tax. It gets reinvested in economic development and park and downtown improvement, which is meant to improve the quality of life of our citizens. So thank you for the report.
You're welcome. If you all have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to help in any way we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will discuss and consider a downtown revitalization matching grant application for 106 South Adelaide, and for this, I'll call on Raylan.
Good morning. Luckily, I have the tenant here with me today, so he'll be talking to you about the details of this application. But just to kind of give you a little bit of background, the city's been working with the tenants at 106 South Adelaide, which is Side Street. It is on the south side of Moore Avenue, Side Street Bar. They are installing a kitchen because they want to be able to serve food to their patrons, and so they've been working with the fire marshal's office and the building official. And so what you have in your packet is some of the expenses that they've incurred to get their kitchen. They were serving food a few years ago, and so these are some upgrades to the kitchen that are required. And so with that, I will invite Don to come forward and talk to you about his application and his friend.
One more time. Okay, can you stand right here? No, right here. Stand still. Yeah. I don't know, he's got to where he's wild as everything in the morning. All right, yes. We had a kitchen in, operating about 2.5 years ago, and we decided to revitalize it. And hopefully bring some folks downtown to not only enjoy our bar, but also enjoy our food. It's going to be a bistro. We'll have basically bar foods. We also will have some street tacos that everybody loves these days. And anyhow, it's been quite expensive to bring up the code to the city, and the paper that I'm sure you each have a copy of. I'm trying to find to make the necessary changes. Oh, I got it right here. The per minute, we're having to install a vent hood, which we didn't have to have last time. I don't know what the difference is last time and this time. We're basically serving the same foods and doing the same things, but city codes have changed in the last few years. The list of expenses, I think, I don't know what I did with them. If y'all have any questions about those expenses. We've had to upgrade our vent, put in a vent hood, upgrade our sign, electrical, grease traps, sinks, and all that gets quite expensive. And we found out that there was some money maybe available to us, and we would like for each of you to consider this application. The help on the funds. This list, we probably have basically another probably $15,000 to spend over what we're applying for. That we are not financing. We're paying for it out of our pocket. Are there any questions about it?
Don, would you tell us a little bit about the vent hood? Is that something that is like permanently affixed to the building? Is that part of your stove system?
It's permanently affixed to the building. If we move out, it'll be staying.
Okay, and was that? I think you said that was required by a change in city code.
Well, I actually think it was required last time, but for some reason.
You were grandfathered in last time.
I don't know, I guess we got grandfathered in or something last time. But yes, the vent hood and of course fire system also has to go in. This kitchen is actually in a courtyard adjacent to our building. And so it's basically, it's not really standalone, but it's, I don't know how to state what I'm trying to say exactly. It's outside a door, and it's in between two buildings. And Well, it was originally set up to be an outdoor kitchen, and that's the reason it got approved, because it was basically open but screened in. Now, with the new codes, we've had to totally enclose it and put off the fancy wall coverings and stuff.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Scarborough or thoughts from the board?
Say, Don, the outside building, does the code have you to connect that to the existing building?
Yes, it is connected to the existing building. Courtyard, there's our business, and then there's 3 businesses on the front side of Moore Avenue. And the kitchen is actually built between these buildings, and a building that's back behind us also is a kind of a back wall. It's not attached to that building, but the kitchen expands between the 2 buildings, which is, I can't remember exactly, about 12 feet, I guess, between the front buildings and our building.
Okay, but there's no code saying that you have to enclose the building, so you can just get from one building to the other without going outside.
Well, you walk out a door under a covered access to access our kitchen. And that's, health inspector is good with that, and I assume building inspector is good with that. The kitchen is tied to the front buildings and our building.
Are the lockheads providing any funds to help you with any of this permanent
No,
installation? No.
no.
What will be the exterior improvements to the building? You mentioned signage in here.
The signage has been changed to address the food content of the bar now rather than just bar.
Yeah, I noticed that at the Taco Fest. My daughter actually noticed it.
Oh.
Any other paint or trim work or any improvements to the
Well,
exterior?
we're going to repaint not a whole lot of front we can do something with, but we are going to repaint the front and spruce it up and
Okay.
make it look nice.
Is that a line item in here, do you know? The paint?
No, that's something I don't think we even included. It's not a real big deal.
Okay. We like that you're doing it. We like a fresh coat of paint in downtown Terrell.
We did a couple of years ago install a window back into the building that was originally there. And we took the covering off of it and
Good.
redid all of it so people could actually maybe look in and see what was going on.
Good. Thoughts or proposal from the board?
I would like to make a few comments, and then I do have a motion. So as a reminder to our board, we do up to a $25,000 matching grant for businesses that are open, particularly with food options. We love that. Past, I believe it's, 8 p.m., which this does meet. Dawn, we do capital improvements here. So anything that's a fixture, you have several things down here that are supplies. I don't think we could cover that, but my recommendation and my motion would be that we reimburse for the plumbing, the Venahood fire suppression, the signage, the electricity, electrical improvements, and the grease trap. And I show that total is $17,765. We really would love to see that outside painted as well, and if that was a part of this application, I believe that is something that we have covered for other people in the past and would cover for you. So I'm gonna make a motion that the board approve a $19,000 reimbursement for you guys to include that paint.
It will be painted, yes.
Thoughts from the board?
Don has operated restaurants in Terrell in the past. So if anyone ever ate at Flamingo Grill, Liquid Zoo, you know he does have probably the best hamburger in town. So I'm anxious for this to get up and running as well.
If there's no other comments, I believe Hillary's was presented as a motion, so I'll entertain a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved for a $19,000 grant. Thank you for your commitment to downtown and to Terrell.
All right,
Glad to
thank
have
y'all.
you.
All right, come on.
At this time, we will discuss park project updates, and for that, I don't know who I'm going to call on. Raylan.
I have an announcement for you. So there weren't any other updates, but we did receive the bid schedule for the athletic field smart irrigation system. So they have released their RFP. Your published legal notices are May 17th, May 24th, and May 31st. The bid opening will be June 3rd. They plan to take that to Park Board on June 12th. We'll come to Paddock for your June 13th with a recommendation, and then hopefully we will take city council action on June 17th.
Perfect.
So that's the update to that schedule.
So just to update our guests, the board is very interested in irrigating the soccer fields and potentially the softball fields as well, if it makes sense financially to do both at one time. We put it out for bid before, and we only got one bid, and it was astronomical. So we're kind of regrouping, rebidding it potentially in phases, just to try to get some better financial options. But we're eager to try to help do that. It's well-used, often used facility for the city. All right. Any other park or questions regarding parks for Raylan? All right. Hearing none, we will discuss and consider fiscal year 2026 budget recommendations.
Okay, so we have been brainstorming different ideas, and I apologize that this information didn't get out to you ahead of time in your packet, but what I hope is that we can have conversations, and I've broken down each of these projects, and that you'll see that it's everything we've been talking about. My plan with this portion of the presentation is to kind of give you what I believe is going to be our next 3-year chunk. I want to thank this board and congratulate you because you were a huge part of what this town would say was one of our most successful downtown events, which was most recently the Taco Fest. And so I'm so glad that the Taco Fest happened right before this meeting because y'all are to thank for all of the vibrancy downtown. We have been working very hard the last 3 years, and I think that the Taco Fest was a huge, it was a huge deal for the city, but I also think it was a huge deal for the downtown business owners and hopefully also the property owners, that they see the work that's been put in, they see the capital funding that's gone into that downtown core, and they see the end result of it. So these individual projects we'll kind of go through one by one. I'm going to break down a lot. And I know that this is where the community gets a little disgruntled, is because there is a lot of design and planning that goes into these types of projects. But goodness, if we can just make it to the end, there is an end result. So we'll just start with project number 1. We've been talking about the Breezy Hill Park enhancement. Wanted to give you a little bit of an update. I've provided in your packet just kind of a layout of the park. We've been talking about different parking options. We think we've got a really good system moving forward. So we will definitely want to close Polk Street there between Daniels and New Hope. And so part of that design and excavation is going to be removing that portion of the street because the city of Terrell owns land on both sides of Polk Street. So if we're able to take up Polk Street and raise that ground, now we've extended the park into the treed area. So part of this would be a tree survey. Let's figure out what trees we can save and actually just kind of open that up into a green field. Instead of installing a big concrete parking lot there at Breezy Hill, we do believe that we can do more head-end parking along the remainder of Polk between New Hope and Bethlehem, and then also do some head-in parking there on Bethlehem. So we think that we can add about 25 or 30 parking spaces if we just keep kind of wrapping the head-in parking around the park, the way it's kind of designed right now. So when you go out to Breezy Hill, what you have is all head-in parking to the green space there along Daniels and also New Hope. And so we kind of just want to keep that meandering parking as we expand Breezy Hill. We think that long-term, the best thing to do is just as we take on more green space, just keep providing that head-in parking. So if you're good with that plan, then we would like to move into the next step, which is just kind of surveying and figuring out the concrete or asphalt cost to add those additional parking spaces, and then what it's going to take to get Polk Street removed and open up that bigger portion of the green space from the land that the city's acquired. With that, we always had been speaking about a splash pad, and that splash pad would kind of be in between the Jamie Foxx basketball courts and the new baseball field. We think there's enough elevation in the land right there. We already have some electrical in that area, so there's not a lot of infrastructure that would have to be. We also have the water that's available along the street side. So we think that that would be a good location, and we're not having to worry about trees. It's already cleared off. And so that would kind of be the target area for that splash pad. We just want to make sure that you are happy with kind of the direction that we're going with that, and we would like to move forward. So as far as budgeting, what we would do is we have set aside the engineering funds. We would just go ahead and finish out the design of that, get this bid ready so that we can go ahead and get the excavation and the tree survey as well as the parking lot cost. And then as you look at spending down possibly your cash balance next year, we would bring that to you as a budget amendment if that's a project that you wanted to pay for. So we're not necessarily going to put the construction cost in your budget for fiscal year '26, but make sure that we have everything ready to present to you that final cost.
Marilyn, I have a question kind of about design. So, and I'm blanking on the word, the little posts you put to block
The
traffic.
bollards.
Yes, thank you. Not think of the word. Would it be possible, would it be smart, something to think about to potentially do those on either side of Polk and then leave the asphalt there? Because if later we wanted to do some kind of covered seating or something, then we already have a ground cover, I mean, versus tearing it up and then pouring concrete somewhere else later.
The problem is that if you're going to take in the green space that the city's been acquiring, now's kind of the time to decide if you want that to just continue as park area. We are definitely going to propose the bollards right there simply for emergency services. So I think the kind of request is that there would be space for a drive-through in case of emergencies, but that we go ahead and start taking in the ground for the park rather than having that potential street there.
Has this been presented to the Breezy Hill Association? Have they been a part of it?
Glenn has been talking to them. I've been talking with Mr. Lancaster. He's been a huge advocate for this. We wanted to make sure first that Paddock was good with what we were proposing, because I didn't want to present anything to Breezy Hill that y'all weren't open to paying for in the future. So we definitely, if there's some tweaks, we want to get those from the Breezy Hill Association before we finish the complete design. I just wanted to make sure that you as a board, that this was something that you could get behind as well.
My only feedback is I hope the splash pad picture is more of a placeholder, because that is a teeny tiny splash pad.
Yes.
Okay.
It is. But I don't want to oversell the splash pad either. So based on the spacing, we want everyone to know that this is where we want to put a splash pad, but then when we really go in there with the surveying to figure out how big it can be, we want them to be pleasantly surprised instead of disappointed.
Under promise, over.
Because there's a lot of really big splash pad pictures.
And on the parking that you were talking about, you said instead of putting concrete parking, it would be the heads. Is that going to be concreted, or is it going to be, because I think some of the parking that's there now is more like rock or,
It would at least be asphalt.
Asphalt, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we would not recommend anything that was not at least asphalt in that area, just simply to keep with what we have.
Okay, we still have that house sitting on the corner of Polk and Daniel.
So we stay in constant contact with that property owner, the city of Terrell does, and so that will be land that will be acquired for Breezy Hill Park. There will obviously be no permanent parking that will go in front of that residence, but it will be designed as such that that is also where additional parking could go in the future. So you may end up with more parking along Bethlehem and not as much there on Polk, but in the ultimate design, it would be with the assumption that that would be that last parcel that the city would acquire for Breezy Hill. So we'll definitely stay very cognizant of her. We also have a residence there on Daniel Street. So when we install the bollards there at Polk and Daniels, we'll need to go in and create a better drive for that house there on Daniels also, because they kind of access both sides of their house, and so we're going to make sure that they're taken care of as well.
I know there's a play structure there. It's hard to see on the map. Where is it located?
It is, yeah. There's plays, it's actually under that shade area there. There is a small, like dome, jungle gym that's also located over there, probably closer to where we would put the splash pad, and that's probably gonna be moved, yeah.
Oh, okay. But the where I'm going, the playground and splash pad are pretty close to each other.
Yeah. And we'll propose some additional seating. We've got some good established trees, so we would put some benches out there so that the parents could be under shade watching kids, yeah.
Tori, speaking of ball, I always feel like I'm interrupting because I'm sitting.
You're on the board.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So, on the bollard, subject, I think as we all create our budgets, I know the chamber has talked about it with park staff, and I know that Mr. Mills will probably hear that from them, that all the events that we do, especially the ones downtown, we may consider some installation of bollards even downtown for those events like the Taco Festival and British Bash and whatever may come up. I know the Jubilee would like to have those because even the water-filled barricades that they put up can be moved by vehicles. And so, and by the way, if you didn't know it, the weekend of the Jubilee, there was another incident with a car driving through a festival in Toronto. So it happened. I mean, I know it never happens here, but it will at some point. So I would suggest that we all consider bollards for our events as we can. I think they're about $300 a piece plus installation. So
Are you envisioning the ones that can, like, I guess they sink into the ground, or you can pull them up, or there's?
actually these, you do the installation and you lock a cap, and it sits on the street, that lock cap. And when you have an event, you unlock the cap, you slide the bollard into the sleeve,
Okay.
and then lock it back down. So no, they don't go up in and out of the concrete like you would see at the state capitol or in Washington DC or other places like that, but they are removable.
and so you can move them, like you said, since they're that way, you can move them whether it's to the Taco Festival, the parks, or whatever, wherever we have one of those caps?
Wherever you have a cap, you can move a bollard to, yes.
So we wouldn't have to, if we had 20
however that works. Yeah, exactly.
We wouldn't have to have a cap per, or,
Bollard per cat.
yeah.
You would, if you had 6 of them at the Jubilee, and then the next week you needed, 12 for the Taco Festival, you just need 12, you wouldn't need 18. But somebody that's a whole lot smarter than me would have to make, how that works. But the installation into the street is permanent. The sleeve part and the actual bollard is what's movable.
The top of your head, do you know a nearby city that has this that we could go see and install?
We can find that out.
Okay.
Any other feedback for the Breezy Hill recommendations, which basically at this point are just to kind of take next steps to explore, survey, budget? All right. Next item.
Okay, the next project in your packet is the Terrell Heritage Society Carnegie Restoration. Jessica did a presentation for you a couple of months ago. The city worked with the Terrell Heritage Society to apply for the Texas Preservation Trust Fund Grant Program. And essentially what this is a 50-50 match with the Texas Historical Commission. And we have been bumped to the next step in that grant application. The most exciting part about this is kind of once you get into that grant rotation, as long as you have projects and as long as you have the 50-50 match, you continue this year after year. So the master plan that was created by or updated by Mark Thacker has, about a $1.5 million worth of renovations. So we really think we can break that down into $60,000 a year, at the very least. Obviously, the Heritage Society has been very active in their fundraising for the Carnegie Library facility. But one thing that I wanted to propose to this board is if you wanted to place within your annual budget that you would sponsor the 50% match for the $60,000 worth of renovations each year. And so what we would like to do is present to the paddock every year which of the restoration items would be applied for that year. So this first year, the first application that we'll be advancing forward is going to be the windows. So we think that with Mark's help, we've kind of broken that $1.2 million into small sections that we could present to the THC every year. And so this is just a request for an annual budget expense for paddock that can be looked at every year if you wanted to be the sponsor of that grant.
That we may or may not pay out depending on if they get the grant in a
Right.
particular year.
Yes.
Not to exceed 30,000 per cycle.
And does that grant match our requirement of capital improvements only?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah, it is for building improvements only. One thing that I did want to note is having this grant and having the solidified funding for that, Jessica and her team are moving forward with Summerlee and also the Meadows Foundation. So this is just really good for their resume to be able to ask for additional funds for some of those larger pieces of the building renovations.
This isn't really a point of discussion, but Jessica, I don't know where you are in the grant process. I don't know what the grant process involves, but I would just like to put it out there as a member of the paddock board. If having a letter of support from us would help you towards that, I would be happy to do that.
That would be amazing. Raylan and I have spoke on that, so, but I will be meeting with the Summerlee Foundation and the Meadows. They were both involved in the late, mid-'80s restoration to the building, so it's a retouch on them, just to say, hey, this is where we are, so.
So the first 60,000, I'm picturing that goes to like foundation. No.
So, may I?
Yeah, no, please.
I've been fighting respiratory, so I was trying not to shout across the room. So the $60,000 specifically are for the two front windows. So they are at an over 90% failure. I think I presented that last time we were here. So Mark's like, we need to fix that before, they're in the front yard. So the good news is that the elevation project we spoke about, We have actually secured funding for that, and we have already got some recommendations from Mark in terms of people to do that project. So as soon as that's done and the dirt work is fixed, the elevation is fixed, then we will move to the foundation, so.
Because that was talking about the stuff in the back with the water.
Yes, ma'am. So, and these last week, if you went by the Carnegie, we had our west side pond out back. So we had a good 4 inches of water just up next to the building, so. That being, and I think Matt and I spoke as the A1 priority. So, but, you know, I spoke with Raylan, and it was just, if we can get the first one, which we moved to the second, which is really, really cool, it would be an annual grant that we could potentially get until the project's done, so.
How many more levels do you have to?
This is it. So now we officially get to present, so we did the overall plan, and so now what they're asking for is specifically what would the first 60,000 go to? Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
How many people originally, I saw the numbers, and I can't remember, how many actually applied, and then how many are moving forward?
So I don't have this year's number. I know last year it was in the tens of thousands, and they have a cap in terms of how much they grant every year, so. But your first year, you can only get 30. It is possible for next year, if we receive this one, you can get up to 50. So if we have a bigger project, then, you know, if you guys would be willing to match the 30, then, you know, we would fundraise for the extra 20 or look to other organizations to help match that, so.
And kudos to Mark Thacker, because I think he said last year he had 12 applications that he assisted with, and like 2 made it. And this year, all 7 of the applications that he was assisting with. So we have a great asset in Mark Thacker, and I continue to sing his praises. He has been instrumental in helping with this building.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like this item needs action from the board, or just, I'm not hearing any dissension about budgeting for it, which is all we're
So
looking for?
As long as, if you're good with it, then what I'm gonna do is place that within the budget that I would actually bring forward to you for approval.
Okay.
So, as long as I didn't hear a no, then y'all would see that in your budget proposals. Next project, I am very excited about Carnegie, but like that's your project. So while she is rebuilding the Carnegie Library, we're gonna clean up the backside of our downtown buildings, which I think is so important. So as part of the South Alley cleanup, I just made a list of some of the things that what I would
Raylan,
really
we're
like.
okay with it, but you skipped number 3. Are you gonna circle back? Because you're obviously so excited about number 4.
What is, what is 3? What did I?
Highway 80 traffic calming study.
Because that's part of this. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I combined.
As long as we circle back.
Yes, okay. So the traffic calming, number 3, I would really like to talk about whenever I unveil the Catherine Parklet. Because, yes, yeah, because my idea for the traffic calming, I really think is going to blow your mind. So if we could come back to traffic calming.
Today, right?
Yes, oh yeah. So let me clean up South Alley, and then we're really gonna talk about a cool thing on Catherine.
Got it.
Okay, so along South Alley, we've talked a little bit about this. A lot of it's gonna be code enforcement. A lot of it is just, picking up our backyard. Have gotten approval for the asphalt overlay, which I think is huge. We have pulled out the plans for the quiet zone so that we can do our permanent dumpster locations. I'll be proposing to the city of Terrell a program that the city of Mesquite does, which is you, as the tenant, you will not have to pay for your solid waste disposal. We will grant that to you. You will have to walk a little farther to put your trash bags into a dumpster that's being provided to you. But we would put a dumpster location on each block, and it kind of gets rid of all of the trash receptacles that are behind every door going along South Alley. So we want to do permanent dumpster locations along South Alley. The asphalt overlay, our fire marshal is very excited about the fact that we would actually paint South Alley as a fire lane, which would force the tenants to park in the parking spaces that are on the south side of the alley. So we're moving all the cars away from the back of the building, which is going to open up what I asked Mark to do whenever I was talking to him about the awning project downtown, is let's look at the backside and figure out some really colorful, even if it's just the single hanging awnings over all of the doors, or are there spaces where there could be some outdoor seating or some patios that get extended a little bit. With that, one of the things within the quiet zone application is part of quiet zones is you need to wrought iron fence your train tracks. So my proposal for that is if we pull that out of our quiet zone, we could go ahead and install the wrought iron fencing. And I know that it doesn't really keep people in or out of the train track area, but it's more for aesthetics when you're looking at your downtown. I put some examples in your packet, just what that could possibly look like whenever we're separating South Alley from the track system. It's not really going to do anything for noise. Ultimately, whenever the new crossings go in, it would connect to the new pedestrian sidewalks. So it would be the permanent placement for the wrought iron, but we wouldn't necessarily be doing the pedestrian sidewalks to get people over to the south side of downtown. But it would allow for some additional aesthetics along South Alley.
Raylan, have you considered, / can we talk through, what would it do to the fire lane? I guess this would really be a question probably for the fire marshal, but I'm just envisioning the backs of those buildings. We have the asphalt, we have the fire lane, but then there's still some frontage to kind of further define that space as something that you don't intrude upon. Could we do some sort of like long metal planter back there or something that gives it a visual definition, but it's not just like one of those little thin rail,
Right,
it's
yeah.
something useful and pretty.
Absolutely. What I could bring to you is kind of the final survey, which would be the space that we know we will have to work with between the final location of the concrete version of South Alley and the backs of those buildings. So there's actually quite a bit, there's going to end up being quite a bit of green space or what right now is rocks or whatever is in between, but you'll get a visual of the amount of space that we have between the right-of-way and the buildings. Sure.
So the cars would head in parking to that fence? Is that what you're saying?
No, so the fence would be closer to the track.
Then the green space and
Green space parking. Yes, ma'am.
Are you suggesting, like, would it help us with the quiet zone grant if we put the fencing in before we get the quiet zone grant?
It would, either way, it has to be a part of the grant. Either way, it would be installed. So I was trying to think of, is there anything that we could do now while we're waiting on the Chrissy grant? And so that I think, although it ultimately is for safety, once the sidewalks go in, I think it would also just kind of clean up the area while we're looking at it. So it's something that we could do now and then eventually tie in with the quiet zones.
So the fencing would only be on one side?
My recommendation would be that we go ahead and fence both sides, because I don't want the illusion of we're fencing downtown. I want it to be, we are fencing the railroad track, and so I would want
That's actually
that.
on the railroad's land?
It's actually on city
Oh,
property.
both sides it would be on?
Yeah,
okay.
so it would need to be on the city right-of-way. And
Where we're
because we own right-of-way up to UP's right-of-way. So it would be on our land. And all of the design and location has already been approved by UP, because that was part of their review. And so it would just be getting them to grant us the ability to go ahead and fence that in.
I need just a little bit of a clarification. So where all the parking spots are right now, we're leasing that? So the fence between the parking and the railroad, we actually have right-of-way there?
We
that we're
have-
not leasing?
No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. So what we have is within our quiet zone application, a requirement is that fencing. And so, but UP would not install it. So we would be installing fencing on their property as an approved quiet zone, item.
Approximately how far from the tracks coming back will we put the fence?
That, I don't know that exact measurement because it's all based on their design standards, but I can get that for you. It wouldn't be where we wanted it, it would be based on the safety measures for the quiet zone. So basically, our Union Pacific design tells us where that fence would have to go.
Are we still talking about burying the utilities back there as well?
Unless you really, really want to.
I just thought that was part of the whole South Alley project and what we were waiting on to do anything back there.
It was a huge part of the South Alley project when the BFTS Museum was a huge portion of that because of where those electrical boxes come to. However, the price tag on burying the overhead utilities, unless it is a huge priority for Paddock, staff recommendation would be to utilize those funds elsewhere. It's over $3 million just to bury the electrical between Rockwall and Virginia. So,
Remind me what we did on North Alley.
North Alley, you still have overhead electrical.
We just relocated some transformers or something?
Yeah, I mean, it was cleaned up because we needed to move some of the poles. And so there will be some encore cleanup whenever we do the ultimate South Alley project. But anytime you move a transformer, if you're trying to do any of that, they'll gladly do it, but you're going to pay. It was a very expensive price tag to do the underground electrical. And so unless that's a priority.
How far out do you think we are from getting quiet zone?
The next application will be due in June, and then we'll find out again in October. So we'll be applying for Chrissy grant and railroad elimination grant because we do qualify for both. And so just simply because of that, at $25 million, it's going to be based on grant award. We think we've got a very solid grant. We're very confident in what we have. It's just, it hitting at the right time.
Do we need to be reserving funds for some portion? Are we going to, I think we want to participate in that. Do we know at what level financially we're going to have to participate in? Do we need to be reserving funds for that?
So that we had always kind of stuck into the future borrow for Paddock because it's about $4 million as far as the cash in hand participation for the entire Quiet Zone project. And so we had just kind of always kept that figure to the side if there was a borrowing potential for the Paddock.
4 million, would that be our piece of that? Is that something that could be shared with TERS? Is that, or other partnerships?
Right, so it's 4 million total, and so then it would be, if we were awarded the grant, taking that to the different entities and figuring out how we could divide that up.
Okay.
So there's not, the good thing about everything I'm proposing for you for South Alley is all of the design work has already been done through Quiet Zones, even the dumpster locations, because that was for the permanent South Alley. And so the only thing I'm doing is just pulling out portions of that project. And I would just kind of want to bundle up the different pricing. And so you'll have line items for the wrought iron fencing, you'll have line items for the dumpster enclosures. And then any of the awnings or exterior facades would, kind of just go over to the regular Capitol downtown. But I'll have individual line items. Again, just something that you might consider as a buy down out of your cash balance.
Why are you so excited about South Valley? What's your why?
Because I think that plenty of people see downtown driving down Highway 80. However, if you really pay attention to downtown, it's more noticeable on your Highway 34 bridge and coming in from Kaufman to Terrell. I think South Alley is the face of your downtown to the people who don't visit your downtown. I think we're missing a group of people who may not realize we've got some great things on the other side of those buildings.
Thoughts on South Alley? Are we ready to move on?
And we've been discussing South Alley since this board has been in existence, so I think it's time that we take some action on it and at least get something that we can see. So,
I think there's a need for it. We had this conversation last time, like, we need our front yard to look really good before we start spending money on our backyard, although it is important to spend money in our backyard. We spend a lot of time in our backyard. I never spend time in South Alley, and I can't imagine myself spending time in South Alley when it looks beautiful until we have the quiet zone.
I don't think anyone is going to spend time in South Alley. I am not proposing patios. I am not proposing events.
Okay.
What I am proposing is we do have, our retail people need to consider backdoor retail. You do have shops who people do enter through the back door. We have additional parking along South Alley. And the only way that we're ever going to get people pushed to park along South Alley is if they feel like they can enter through that into the buildings. And so what we really need is the tenants and the property owners to realize that both sides of their buildings speak to downtown.
And I think to that point, when I had coworkers coming into town for the Taco Fest and bringing their families with them, and they said, well, Moore Avenue is going to be full of people, so where do we park? I went, So I for now, we need it to be better, if not best. We understand that best is still a little bit off, but I think the dumpster enclosures being more formalized and aesthetically pleasing, the fencing, I hate to say the P word because they do look fantastic, but some of that maybe, obviously not to the scale that Moore Avenue is, but something to just make that look a little less
It's okay to
dumpstery.
go back there. Like,
yeah.
it is part of it, yeah.
and the plan is to pave it in concrete like North Alley.
Yes.
So it'll be like where you can actually drive down it.
Yeah, so ultimately, and we already have, and that's the best part about doing this, is it is just gonna take not a little bit of money, but a lot of money and a lot of time, but everything we're doing is based on the final plan. And so, yes, South Alley will be a concrete alley from Virginia all the way through,
Lighting.
but like,
Security, or overhead lighting and everything else.
yes, absolutely.
And I'm kind of like with Hillary, when I drove my mom down through the middle of the thing, and also, by the way, the parking lots we paid for were full. That was exciting
It
to
was
see.
amazing.
It really was.
So we kind of came back behind too, just to, we were like, well, where are all the other parking? And then we drove back there and I was just like, oh. So,
Free-for-all.
yeah, it was. It was kind of dangerous.
It was, yeah.
Almost.
So
the
some
amount of people we
striping,
had.
some very evident, like, this is what you need to do back here, I think will go a long way.
And I think that event showed us the need for that, because on a Tuesday at 3:00 in the afternoon, are people parking back there that aren't tenants of those buildings? No, but we want our downtown to be vibrant, and so if we want that, then we need to be ready for that.
Because in my head, I also saw there were all these cars, people were getting out, and they had to go walk all the way around. And I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if they could just walk through the building, maybe shop to get out to the front?
Yeah.
And additional parking is important because when I was at the Taco Festival, I had a stroller, and those sidewalks are not pedestrian friendly when you have a table sitting in front of deals and people with their Great Danes and everything else that was going on. So, it was kind of hazard, going up and down that level. I would suggest that we do not allow parking on Moore Avenue during those festivals so that there is more pedestrian
Safety.
Yeah, because it was, everybody was there knows how crowded it was. And
I told-
these poor people were trying to sell their stuff, and you had 3 deep and so I would suggest totally stopping the parallel parking.
Sims asked me on that day, he was like, well, how would you grade it? B, C, B plus? And I was like, you know what? Saturday was an A because every problem we had was a good problem. Yeah. And so it was a learning lesson. It was, okay, now we always said we wanted big downtown events. Now we've had one, we'll readjust, we'll make some recommendations, talking about bollards, how are we going to work the barricades? And so it was, every problem was a great problem to have. Yes, absolutely.
Raylan, I'm all for parking behind the buildings. I park back there all the time, just because.
Thank you.
I have a hard time parallel parking.
I do too. I don't like it. I don't like it. If I can't pull straight
Parallel
in.
parking. And in the one block where we have steps, it's hard for my family member to
Right.
manage that. So backdoor parking is great.
I think you're going to be happy with the end result. I really do. And I hope other people are too. Okay, so unless there's no hiccups or other things that you would like looked at, then these will just kind of come to you as line item discussions when the pricing is ready, if that's good. So real quick, and I love the comment that Carlton made, the next item, as I was walking through Taco Fest, and I'm glad that this is why we need great minds in a room, Carlton left, because I was thinking, gosh, our barricades are everything's so ugly, like the big orange cones, like I understand all of that, but it was just so ugly. So how are we going to barricade downtown? So some of the things as I was searching online is we can do like heavy duty, more wrought iron barricades that have concrete, like CMU brick holders on them. I am all in on eliminating the parking. In fact, I've already been talking to the district engineer about what does that look like? How far back do we need to be if we're going to barricade along Highway 80? So he's kind of getting me some of those dimensions. Because I don't want our vendors to be in a bad spot, but it's either the vendors or the visitors. And so my thought is to move the vendors down and let the sidewalks be for pedestrians. And so what's the best way to protect them? So we're going to have some traffic, the ugly things on either end of the blocks, because those are required, but what can we build temporarily to protect vendors if we want to move them down one level? So some of the options that I came up with was, like I said, the temporary wrought iron, heavy duty barricades. I love the idea of the bollard caps, and maybe it needs to be more of a long-term investment. And maybe we look at, I don't know if every bollard is just a single bollard, or if they, make them where when you put the bollard in, you actually get a fencing mechanism that comes out on either side. And so, so I think it's something that I would definitely like to explore and bring more information to you. Because while the barricades work and the water-filled barricades work, for us to continue down this path, I think we need a more long-term solution.
So something I would say on that, I understand that it's temporary, but keep in mind, the bollards, you can still walk through.
Mm-hmm.
Barricades and fencing, you can't. And
Right.
we don't want to overdo that to the point that there's no traffic flow and people feel like they're being kept out.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I don't know what the pricing difference is, but
Yeah.
traffic flow difference, the bollards are more conducive to that than a barricade.
I've definitely,
The fencing now would be good on more, where you're not parallel parking anymore. That's where you would put your cross there.
right, yeah. So I think it's going to have a lot to do with placement, and it may be an assortment of just different things, but, you know, obviously our target area is between Rockwall and Virginia, and so I would just like to come up with something that looks pretty, but we definitely do know that we've got some safety concerns. I would have to research that, yeah. It will.
Because that would be good for Christmas parade too.
Absolutely. So I just, luckily, again, great problems to have. And so I just want you to know that that's on our list and that we'll be bringing those back to you also. We're almost to Catherine. So the next thing, I'm sorry, I can't believe it. So the next item is we have talked a little bit about the Chapman Building. And our love-hate relationship with 202 Eastmore Avenue. We've talked about it is very hard for us to put pressure on other property owners when we own one of the biggest buildings downtown. So we have produced an RFQ that could be released to developers. I can tell you, I have a list of 4 people who are interested in an RFQ if it got released, and 3 of those are actually residents here in Terrell. So it would be someone local who's interested in this building. The proposal, how I've kind of described it to you and also in the document, is that this would be a partnership. The city of Terrell would give ownership of the building to the winner, the developer. So it would immediately go back on the tax rolls in the within the first 18 months. The expectation would be that the exterior of the building be completely redone, whether that is a rebuild with, making sure that it is structurally sound and that it looks good from 80. I kind of look at this as kind of the Anderson building. You don't have to have anything on the inside, but it needs to look really good on the outside. And then they have a 5-year time limit to build out the interior of the building. It would be a one-time incentive, so it wouldn't be, you could double dip. So if Paddock wanted to participate in, say, set amount would be offered to the developer to help get the outside of the building ready, then you on your own have 5 years to prepare the inside of the building at your own expense. The requirement would be that the first floor be retail, and then they would obviously produce a proposal of what they would want to do with the remaining spaces.
Do we have pictures of what the original building looked like?
I've got some, yeah. I put, Mark Thacker did a lot of research on that building, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Is that the plan to kind of bring it back to its original?
That would be the hope. The people that I've talked to, especially the residents here that are interested in it, a lot of them remember what it was. And so I think what you'll probably see at least one that has a new idea for the building, and then we've got some who would want to restore it back. So anyway, just an option for you if this is something that y'all are ready to consider in fiscal year 26, if you would be interested in being a partner on the exterior renovation cost for that first year.
When I got to look through this packet, I'm probably for helping out on here, but I noticed that everything that we've got in here, because we've done a lot of work at several of the parks, especially Breezy Hill and at Ben Gill. I don't see anything in here for Stallings, Arlie White, or Kings Creek. I see a huge amount for downtown, which there's a whole lot we need to do downtown. I'm kind of at quandary because this seems a little lopsided right now.
Right now, this is just the downtown projects. I would assume that Glenn will bring y'all the park board recommendations possibly in June.
Okay.
So, he kind of handles,
They all need new play equipment. I mean, the playground equipment is bad. There's a lot of room.
If y'all will email Glenn individually and ask him, yeah, we need that here pretty quick.
I think he's given, haven't we had a list forever that says stuff that we're gonna do to the, we've had a list.
We have a parks plan, but
I mean, yeah, we've got a list of, we did the solar lighting, we're gonna move the basketball, lots of stuff at Kings Creek. Now, that's on the plan with the solar lighting's already up. Yeah, but we're gonna put the walking trails in, move the basketball court.
that's all part of the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant, yeah.
So that's not
King-
us.
Kings Creek is going to be well taken care of, yeah.
Stallings and Arlie White.
So Stallings and Arlie White, and we've done the lighting, and we've done the benches, and the trash cans, I believe have been updated at those parks.
Right, but not a big improvement where we could say Paddock has invested
Right.
in those
The
parks.
same playground material, they do have new signs,
Yeah, they look great.
so those signs are good. There has been a little bit.
And I'll just make mention to Glenn and Demeter that maybe when they bring the irrigation bid to y'all in June, that they have kind of a plan for fiscal year '26. And so maybe you can get that on the park board agenda for June also. Okay.
The only feedback I have for you to kind of consider is the 5-year timeline. Do I understand correctly that, I'm sure it would take us 12 months. I mean, let me say this differently. We would grant the funds to do the facade, but they would hire, or the city would hire that
They
contract?
would.
They would hire that. Say that takes 12 months, and then the 5-year clock starts, and they have 5 years to get it ready for a CO.
First floor CO.
First floor CO.
Because the funding, and kind of the thought process in that is because Paddock is sales tax generated, y'all would need to start seeing a return on your investment, which is probably just going to be your first floor. And so hopefully they would move faster than that, but, you don't want to put them in we want them to have the opportunity to grow with downtown and not force them to kind of be the catalyst.
So my suggestion was gonna be some kind of tiered carrot structure. You get it done in the first 12 months, there's a bigger carrot than 4, 3, 2, 1. By the time we're at 5 years, it's a problem if it's sat there for 5 years, but there's some incentive to do
Yeah.
it faster.
Okay.
And there's no complications or conflict of interest that we would be giving money to a city-owned building?
It wouldn't be city-owned at that point.
Right. So part of the development agreement is that they would take ownership of the city building. It would,
It would go back on the tax rolls.
yes.
Okay,
And that's kind of the main thing. We want day one, it to be in someone else's purview.
Okay.
And then that way, hopefully, within the next few years, TERS number 1, then that's how we reach out to TERS, because they benefit on the property tax side, and that's how we kind of balance out between Paddock and TERS.
I second Tori's incentive approach. I will tell you, I have so much heartburn about this. I don't like any of it, but I don't know what the alternative is. But I don't want to see us invest $1 million and 5 years later have a T-shirt shop inside. Like, that is not a good use of this board's money. And so, and it's so hard to know sitting here today what that looks like. It could be great, it could be not great. But for that amount of money, we need some immediate
You
turnaround.
can
We need something to show
very
for it.
specifically request a restaurant. I mean, this is our RFQ, and if you're investing money, you can say specifically the business type that you want in return. And so because you're leaving it wide open for the remaining square footage, you're absolutely able to say what. What's the square footage of that? You have about 3,000 per floor. So it's a substantial, it's big enough for a very good-sized restaurant. Essentially, it's a little bit smaller than the first floor of where Lula Mays is going, but could definitely be adequate.
I'd like to see a men's clothing store, $5, a nice men's clothing store come in. There is no place to buy,
Risingers.
well,
And they've been there for 50 years, so yes, I think you're onto something. I don't want to be so specific because whoever's going to make this investment, we don't want to pigeonhole them into a certain retail corner. Was this space, it looks like a hotel to me. Was it ever a hotel? A department store. Okay. Like all 3 levels were a department store?
I don't remember what was on the 3rd floor, but when you came into the first floor, they had the menswear and children's. And it seems like their shoes, and then you had to go up the stairs, you remember, Mary? That's what I was trying to go up the stairs to the women's and something else was houseware. Was it Sears or Penny's? Penny's, maybe? I think it was J.C. Penney's.
Yeah, because it wasn't Sears, because there's a different building that was
Sears was down the street.
Everybody went there and got their Easter dresses
And they had fabric.
Cute.
Yes, and I love that they made the women walk to the second floor. But
Of course they did.
Did Neiman's get kicked out of downtown? Are they looking for a place? They did. Okay.
I should
I'm
call
gonna call
them.
them.
I should call them. Yeah, they are getting to stay.
I would have to. All right. Thank you for the update on this and for your vision and ideas for how to take it from this to something better.
We're gonna move it, I promise you.
And it is very exciting that there are private investors interested. And we've said before that for a building this size, it will take a public-private partnership because they're taking on so much risk of the unknown, saving this building.
I've walked 4 tarot lights through that building in the past month.
Great. Thank you, Raylan.
Very, very excited about that. Okay, so we're going to talk about traffic calming and Catherine Street. Okay, so I know we got really, really excited about Rockwall and Moore and everything that could go there. The heartburn with Rockwall and Moore is traffic. And so that is a major thoroughfare, no matter how you look at it. And when I'm talking to the fire marshal, he's like, yeah, it would look really pretty, but like, what about? And so, I had originally had in here some Rockwall and Moore things, and he was like, okay, well then let's build it up so that, you've got brick and you're building it way up so that if someone was to drive in, they're hitting the side of what's a raised park and so on and so forth. So I have another crazy idea for you. If you took Catherine Street, which is the middle point of Terrell, between Rockwall and Virginia, it is also the visual centerpiece of future town square. If we closed Catherine between Moore and North Alley, and go from Moore to South Alley, you could potentially have 2 parklets. Mary Gail Ramsey is going to start the renovations of First National Bank, which is on the North Catherine side. And hers is going to include an ADA ramp on the Catherine side anyway, and she was going to need to request to take out some of that head-in parking along Catherine. It's something to consider. Of all of the park items that you would like to see, whether that be fountains or benching, lighting downtown, you could potentially host events on those 2 areas. And the best part, especially for those of us who help plan events downtown, we really struggle between, you're always on that end of town or you're on this end of town. And so we just feel like that this would be a great location. Something that we would never tell Union Pacific Railroad is that, because we like to have credits in our pocket, Eventually, if Town Square built out, ultimately Catherine going to Town Square could potentially be closed as well, which would be a huge win and something that we'll use during our negotiations with the quiet zones. So it is a brand-new idea, but one that I wanted to throw out at you. And then kind of, if we wanted to do a parklet downtown, that speaks to the lighting. So now whatever lighting goes in there, we need to make sure is also part of our Highway 80 lighting. And one of the ideas that we have on traffic calming is a tabletop crosswalk between Catherine and Moore. So we would actually raise Highway 80 to where there is a huge crosswalk going between the two parks, which it's basically putting a huge speed bump, very pretty speed bump in the middle of Highway 80, which significantly slows down your traffic along Moore Avenue. It's the entire distance of Moore, the length of Catherine. But it's wide like a crosswalk. It's not a little hump. Yeah.
Like a big trapezoid.
Yeah. You walk through it? You would walk over, yeah, that would be your, no, over it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It would, so right now your crosswalks are on Highway 80. You walk across the road. So essentially, this portion of the road would be raised, and you would still walk across the road, but now it's raised so that the cars have to slow down.
So what does that do to your 5 o'clock traffic in the evening coming through down?
They're just gonna have to
booties
take
down.
that, they're gonna have to take that bump slower than 55 when they're trying to get through town at 5 o'clock.
They travel about 30, but I just noticed there's a lot of traffic.
There is.
In the
And all it
evening.
does, it doesn't stop traffic. They're not, it's built in such a way that it's not like a speed bump where you have to slam on your brakes and then slowly go over it. It slows down all of traffic.
But your
Yeah.
trucks couldn't sit at one red light, hit the gas all the way to the next red light, which
Mm-hmm.
is currently a very big problem. Also, these side street parklets were recommended in the capital plan and comprehensive plan, use the wrong word, comprehensive plan. And it is something that we have not gotten to yet, so I'm excited to see us continue to follow the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. I think that is huge. We can't do anything about the red lights, which my coworkers brought their kids to Taco Fest, and I was walking the 9-year-old son across the street to go to the bathroom, and he said, I am going to die before this light turns green, before the crosswalk goes.
Yes,
And so we can't control TxDOT's timing on that, but having a safer crosswalk space when that does happen, I'm very in favor of.
And what I want to say to this group is this is going to take a lot of planning and design. Like this is a big idea. So when I talk about your next 3 years, this would be kind of the big end result of that. So there would be a lot of decisions that would have to be made. Along with this, I do want to mention that I had talked to Kimley Horn. I know that y'all want to look at doing different street signage for downtown, for our downtown core. They have reached out to TxDOT to see what the possibility is. It's way too expensive to replace the actual poles that our street lights are on, but they may be open to us painting them black or a different color. And so we're putting together some different options of how we can really make that area look different when you drive in. So all of that's kind of part of, there was a sheet, and yes, you saw that for traffic calming. We are also looking at the different requests for the timers for our crosswalks. And so it may not always just be the button push, but we can put interval stops along Highway 80 based on timing. So that we can make sure even if there are no cars there on the side streets, that sometimes the light's red anyway. And so we'll be looking at adding additional timing intervals too.
In the traffic studies that we've done, and to be very honest with you, I don't know how I feel about this one. Did we do the traffic study on what's coming across on all of the downtown?
ma'am.
I would have thought Catherine would have been one of the major ones.
It's not.
Is there any way we could see the results of those studies?
Yeah, I can do that. What I'll do is, if y'all are interested in just even seeing kind of what the next phase is at just looking at this, I can have, it may be a good idea to have Kimley Horn come back and kind of revisit what that complete street study did for us. Because it really talked about the traffic downtown, because we had even talked about removing some of the left turn lanes and different things like that. So with some of those traffic calming items, I'll just ask them to kind of give you an update of everything that we learned on complete streets, and that'll give you an overall of what's going on 80.
I think that would help, because
It's been a while.
since we've seen that, and I'm trying to piece where this goes in, because I'm still thinking, are we gonna redirect traffic this way? And so I'd kind of like to see what where we are.
Can do that. So there's nothing really big that happens now. Maybe what I do is just schedule an item on the agenda to kind of bring you up to speed on complete streets, and then y'all can kind of consider how this might work into some of those plans. I wanted to plant the seed of this idea.
Raylan, I've been approached several times, and you probably know who one or two of the persons are, about moving the rail car to Rockwall and Moore. No. Because they think that would be cool right there by that mural and the train going by, and it's underutilized as it is now.
Are we going to talk about the rock wall? I mean,
Yes,
is there a
we can.
proposal? Is there a proposal in here for that lot?
There's not.
Okay.
Because I tried to incorporate the ideas of the parklet at another location because of safety, but it is important to mention, I mean, that is still a very large piece of green space that we know half of it's going to be roadway, but, you know, the ultimate plan there, I'm open to suggestions if it's not where we want a lot of people to gather, because that really is what emergency services is worried about, just that location. So I am open to ideas that you would like to explore for that location.
So at the next meeting, will you bring us the visual of how much land there will be to work with once that's there? And completely understandable if it can't be a big gathering space, but even like, I'm not suggesting a gazebo, but like in Kaufman, they've got this little patch of grass with a gazebo. It's just pretty to look at. Nobody sits in that gazebo, but it's better than nothing.
Right, absolutely.
Like what y'all have behind the bank.
Yes, nobody, barely gets used, but it's better than a patch of grass. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
We need to do something like that on that entrance.
And I definitely support the metal fencing on the two sides.
yeah.
Close that, I think safety-wise, that's a great idea for whatever we.
Well, or Hillary's idea to do some kind of water feature there, not necessarily for public use, but for public enjoyment. I mean, visual use of the space.
It sounds like they don't want anything that's gonna congregate people for safety reasons, and/or we don't wanna spend that kind of money if 5 years from now, that's all gonna be torn up.
Well, and we would definitely make sure it goes somewhere that we would, when the road goes through, I will definitely bring you the dimensions of
Okay.
what's going to be left.
Not just the dimensions, those numbers won't.
No,
matter.
no,
The
yeah,
visual.
no, the
Okay.
visual of
Okay.
what, so that we know, we
What
can
we have.
calculate how much space
Okay.
is there, and then we can talk about what y'all would like to see there.
Because that mural kind of is an entrance to town.
It is.
Don't block the mural.
I don't, I just kind of want to frame it more. It's like you've got the mural, but then you've got an ugly metal building behind it and some old broken concrete and uneven ground and,
And frankly, I don't think I just think that takes something old and puts it in a more visible spot. So, you know, that's my opinion.
Thank you for being the messenger on that.
I do think once we have this visual of the lot, it would be great for us to circulate it to citizens and get some ideas and feedback and highest and best use.
Yeah, I can definitely do that for you. And then last but not least, because I want to make sure that we continue to talk about the 9 football fields that we have back behind downtown. So this is just something that I want to keep as part of future projects. Obviously, the phase that we would love to get to at Town Square, if nothing else, is the greening phase. We'll be working with TERS. I will tell you, this property is, it's on a lot of people's radars. It's on developers' radars. It is, it may not be something that we talk internally about, but downtown developments are really big with developers. And so, I just want Town Square to always be part of the conversation. I know that those of you who were able to participate in the strategic plan with the EDC, it was also a conversation there. It doesn't look like a lot of land when you're just driving through it, but it is a massive piece of property, and I just want to make sure it stays part of the conversation. I think that my biggest concern when I first came here was that all of the conversation would be about Town Square, and we would forget our existing downtown. But I think we've worked really well to make sure that historical downtown has a good fitting. And the most important thing is going to be how we marry these two projects. And so just making sure it's always part of your packet.
What does the board feel like the next step should be on Town Square? And should we play a role in it?
I personally feel that I don't love spending money down there. It's the front yard, backyard conversation. Until we get more avenue operating the way we want it to be, I don't see, I understand the land banking for long-term use. I understand controlling and having say-so in who purchases that and develops that. But in terms of our investment, I want our investment to be making more avenue successful, thriving, beautiful before we start expanding that beyond what we already are not on top of.
I think we gotta, I think we gotta keep that, because that is going to be, our downtown is getting bigger than what it is. And I agree with Hillary on, we still got so much to do in the downtown space. I believe right now where it's at, some other funds from other entities need to be put into there first. And then I think we come in and we're kind of like more the icing on the cake. But I do believe we need to, we need to realize it's back there, we need to realize it's coming, and we need to keep focused on that and figure out at what point we can, or we need to step in and say, okay, we've got some funds for there.
I think it's a really important conversation when we're talking about quality of life, which is the big phrase right now, right? And the importance of this group really wanting to advocate that this will be a downtown park, and it needs to be a park. And so I want to keep using that word, because with that amount of space, you have the potential to have a pretty large green space, which would be considered a park improvement to the city. I don't want it to just be viewed as buildings and businesses, but that, eventually you could host events down there, park, community events. And so that, it's just something to always keep in mind when you're thinking about even soccer fields or future, it's already in a residential, that could essentially be a very nice neighborhood park also. And so,
vision to do something like Magnolia? You know, y'all been down at Waco and seen what
there,
they have?
town square vision right now is buildings around a I mean, the whole thing is to be built around green space.
Because that's kind of what they've done, sort of. You know, built a little building,
Yeah.
retail.
So I just, nothing,
Because I think you have to get that, I mean, have we designated what's the green space?
we have an idea.
Okay.
And so initially it was just kind of the rectangle piece in the center. But ultimately, I mean, from that to a build out, I just think it's important that we don't lose sight of kind of how this was sold to the community was the green space.
But if we don't have the outer, you don't have the inner.
Yeah.
Just to me. So we gotta work,
Big green space.
we gotta work.
Gotta have something to do.
I know.
And that we've got to have that foundation, I think, before I mean, depending on what goes in on the sides and the back, sides and back. Depending on what goes in the sides and back, could have a direct reflection on what goes in our green space. So, because I don't see, I know there is a vision, but there's not here's what
There's no
coming in.
plan,
It's
yeah.
kind of hard to say what we're going to do in the middle, because we don't know what's on the outside. Does that?
It does make sense. Thinking back to the plans that we've seen with the buildings being the perimeter, and you don't know what's the front of the building, you don't know where's the back of the building, and it's this massive green space. We are not Washington DC. We are not Rice University. I don't think that's a highest and best use for this land. I believe that stormwater drainage was a huge issue. There needs to be a pond on here with a water feature that eats up a big part of the land. It is not expensive. There's we'll call it a water feature, but it serves a purpose and solves a problem that we have. When you do the buildings all around the perimeter, it becomes a massive project. Are there roadways that go through this right now? Okay. You could break this up. This could be more of a development, with logical ingress, egress to the buildings, front and rear facades. At some point, I would be open to not just looking at here's what this land is going to be, but this land could be A, B, or C. Yes, this A can be phased. I'm not ready. None of us have voted on, not the city council, no one has voted and said, this is what Terrell Town Square is going to be. Yes, and so we all kind of have analysis paralysis about it, and I love that Raylan keeps it in front of us. We're not necessarily the board that's going to decide what happens here, but I think the council would be open to input, feedback on how we can eat this elephant one bite at a time. And what I remember from the last discussion was the crippling factor is, for sure it was drainage, and it may have been utility sewer as well, that was going to be so expensive.
So the one part of the reason that I want to make sure that we continue to talk about this is we have a huge grant we're working on now that's already been submitted. It's the federal RAISE grant. And based upon the census blocks that Town Square sits on, which is a huge benefit to this grant, we have the potential to get funding for the roadway improvements around Town Square. And because the roadway improvements create this rectangle in the middle, we're able to also look at stormwater and drainage, et cetera. And so the RAISE grant, the way we applied for it is our final roadway plus sidewalks, plus, everything that's going around this property, and then ultimately linking back over to Bradshaw, because we were able to sell it as kind of an alternate route to Highway 80, trying to push some of that traffic down. It's just like any grant, you never know what's going to happen, but the plan is in place. The baby steps are going to be roadway, drainage, water, sewer. And so the city's just making sure that we're making plays in that direction. If something like the RAISE grant took off, you talk about having to flip a switch on town square property. Because if the roadways are going in, now we're really having to decide what's going to happen with this property, because as it stands right now, the roadway is going around a large rectangle, and that's going to kind of dictate, what we do. If we want some of that roadway to remain, then that needs to be part of the discussion. If not, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot of building the streets out. Luckily, right now, or not luckily, we don't really have that problem. We have a plan, we submitted it. The biggest part of that grant is that the city is able to show the initial investment of all the land acquisitions. The city has made a huge investment in this area, and so we're trying to use that in our grant applications. And so, there are so many decisions that still need to be made over here. I just want to make sure it doesn't continue to fall to the wayside.
What are the requirements of that grant? Did you say something about census?
Yeah, so the U.S. Census blocks, we have 2 census blocks that are economically disadvantaged within Town Square. And so we've been able to use that on grant funding. We have a Texas Water Development Board grant, which is going to allow us to do some of the water and sewer improvements in this area because of those census grants. So the location is great as far as federal funding and getting some of those improvements made. So
Requirements for us in terms of housing has to go here or X, Y, Z has to go
it's
on
based upon the existing, what's existing right now. And so, just kind of taking advantage of that in our grant funding is probably what's going to be pushing this project forward more than anything, is that we do have some advantages to the infrastructure. So no decisions, just know that I will sprinkle Town Square on you every now and then because we don't want to forget.
No, it is, I mean, it's good for you to do that because we get so involved in downtown and PARs, it's easy to forget. We have that potential sitting back there.
Yeah. So the last part in your packet, I just want to go over with you real quick. I kind of broke down each of those project numbers. When we look at funding for your facade program partnerships, we had talked about the awning projects. I spoke with Mark Thacker. I told him that within 12 months, if we could do 12 to 15 awnings downtown, that would be great. Luckily, we've got drawings for quite a few. So I've just kind of budgeted those at about $6,000 a piece. Some are going to be more, some are going to be less. And then also for him to look at some of the rear access and the retail ready for South Alley. So in your facade reimbursement program, we generally carry $75,000 because we wanted to do do a self-initiated awning project. I was going to propose a $150,000 budget in your facade reimbursement because we knew we wanted to do awnings, and then that would still give you the $75,000 for any applications that come in for you. Your development partnerships, which is the next thing on your budget, I just plugged in, a possible incentive for the Westmore downtown redevelopment and then also the Heritage Society grant. Downtown capital improvements, I don't have anything in there. If we wanted to just carry the typical, I would go down to 50,000 because I can't imagine smaller things coming in. Ultimately, what I would be bringing you is line items to approve larger purchases there. Your park capital improvements, I've just included Breezy Hill, but we know that that number will change based on the recommendations that come from Park Board. So I've just kind of plugged that in. And any of your engineering cost, it would just be what's the design work going to be for Catherine Street, if we want to look at that, and part of that would be the traffic calming. So, and that's just kind of how I've broken down your budget for next year.
So even though we had talked about possibly doing a large borrowing for downtown traffic signals. You said that number was astronomical.
You would not even want to consider borrowing for that. So
Okay.
what I think we will be able to do is, when we had looked at, again, we're going to be able to pull a lot of this from our Complete Streets design work. I think that we're going to be able to put a number together for you to replace the pedestrian lighting, the small street light lamps that go along 80, and any upgrades, whether it be paint or whatever we can do to the existing lighting, and then it will be the street signs. And I don't think that any of that is going to be necessary for a borrow. I think that all of this that I'm bringing you now can just be a decision based upon cash in hand and some design for maybe future borrowing if there was a larger project you wanted to do. I think that most of this you'll be able to get knocked out, especially even on the Arlie White and Stallings Park additions.
What have we left off?
There was a lot of notes at the last meeting, so I hope that we gathered most of those, yeah.
Do we have an update from the building on South Rockwall that was going to be a community center?
Actually, I received a rendering from her on Wednesday. And so I have asked her to come and give y'all an update in June because y'all have been paying for the engineering. So she's still working with her engineer and architect, and they've actually come up with what's starting to look like a building plan. So I invited her to put her on the agenda for next month so that she can deliver that update for y'all. Southland
project.
Yeah. I have not spoken with Taylor. He's reached out a couple of times. I know that he has continued contract services with Mark Thacker. Whenever I talked to Mark this week, I think they're all the way through schematic on his design, but I haven't seen. I know that the same people who are interested in the Chapman Building are really, really interested in the Southland Building, so I have a feeling he's getting hit up by about 3 or 4 people also. So it's good to have that undertow of people who are interested in investing. We've had quite a few phone calls. You've got the Bruce Miracle Mike Chitty Building that's for sale. There's been quite a few phone calls on that. Jonathan and Lily were here earlier. They are getting ready to sign a lease with Hector Torres for the building suites that are all together on the west side of town, that Welcome to Terrell mural where the electrolysis center is and the Marine Corps. They're looking at leasing that space. We were talking about that, the concrete slab behind it and that terrible building. He's looking at leasing that entire parcel. He wants to do a bar, restaurant, patio, and possibly, I've been talking to Hector about getting that building removed. So he was here just to kind of, see how the meetings go, but that was part of the reason why he was here, is he's getting his package together and getting ready to sign a lease on that building.
Now, they're the ones that,
Have Lily's Event Center out at
the
Shops
okay.
at Terrell. Uh-huh. Because of the amount of the rent. Of the rent. Luckily, Jonathan is a contractor by trade, so he's really excited about getting in there and getting those suites kind of gutted out and moving some stuff around. Yeah, the structure itself is good. It was kind of the renovations between. But he seems very positive, and he was like, I was kind of, surprised at the amount that was coming back. I mean, it's not going to be a substantial investment for him on that side, and he thinks it's something he can turn around pretty quickly. So he's already applied for his TABC license. I mean, he's moving forward, so it's pretty exciting.
All right, do you need any action from the board?
No, as long as all minds are clear, we're good. We're just going to keep taking baby steps, and so I've got your notes here, and I'll work on getting you the Complete Streets update also.
Flowers are planted, we're good.
Listen.
People don't pull them up.
Yes, I know. We were going to go into executive session. I have no updates there, which is good. So that's actually a good thing.
All right.
So Raylan, I just wanted to say thank you. It was so exciting.
And wasn't it good?
So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Definitely paying off.
Y'all, that was the bow on the box,
That's
for
right.
sure. So,
All right.
thank y'all.
If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.